Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to have you join us for this very special webcast, Tips for Managing a Remote Team. I'm Amy Abel, Vice President of the Conference Board. I'm very excited to have my colleagues from Root joining me and all of you to join us for this really, of course, timely topic. We all know what's going on in the world. We all know that there's a lot of intensity and a lot of concern, but we hope that today's webcast will bring a little bit of support and help to all of us that are now working remotely, whether we were before or whether we are all of a sudden finding ourselves managing a remote team. We also hope to have a little fun, right, because we need some levity in our world and in our lives just to support each other and help us get through this very difficult time in our world. So let me continue with this webcast. Some of the questions that we will ask and find out and learn from all of you, techniques to preparing managers, right? How do we engage a remote team confidently and effectively? How do we facilitate open and honest conversation with our teams, those around us, our colleagues, and a guided approach. So we will have practical tips for all of you to think about and hopefully implement right away. You might be doing some of it already. Maybe you'll learn a new gold nugget for your work today and tomorrow, and help us all navigate as best we can through these uncertain times. So before we jump in, let me introduce my colleagues and speakers for today. Gary Magenta, Senior Vice President and Chief Change Architect at Root, Inc. Gary is passionate about helping leaders and organizations change their business, transform how they engage their people, and deliver exceptional results. He is the Chief Change Architect of Root, Inc., a consulting company that helps the world's most influential organizations master disruption, activate change, and realize positive results. For 20 years now at Root, Gary has partnered with CEOs and executive teams at Fortune 500 and Global 2000 organizations around the world, bringing a holistic view of their businesses, their people, and the customers that they have. Gary is the author of The Unbossy Boss, as well as a talk show host of a series, The Pot Stirrer. He also has a forthcoming book, Boss, the original four-letter word. I think we all need to read that. He is a highly sought-after international speaker that has been recognized with a Stevie American Business Award for the Executive of the Year. So welcome, Gary. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having us, Amy.
Yes. I also am delighted to welcome Rochelle Rogers, who is a leadership development coach at Root, Inc. Rochelle has been developing leaders for over 20 years. She serves as one of Root's residential experts in tools and learning design for virtual engagement. Rochelle has worked with many Fortune 500 organizations to successfully transform their culture, to engage their employees, to strengthen their leaders, and empower people at all levels of the organization. She has studied at the Greenleaf Center for Servant Leadership and coaches accordingly. Rochelle, delighted to have you join me.
So glad to be here. Thank you.
So let me just set up the stage for the audience. I hope you will find that this is a highly interactive webcast. We want to hear what's going on with you in this turbulent time, and you can type in your responses in the lower left-hand pod there, and everyone will be able to see, and we will be responding to your comments and your questions, and we'll just go with it, right? So again, really, thank you so much, and we hope to have fun, right? That's the name of the game. Thank you so much for joining us, and let me turn it over to you, Gary and Rochelle.
Again, welcome everybody. We are so happy that you're here. And as you may be able to tell, Rochelle, Amy, and I are all in our home offices today. And just as a way to get you acquainted with the chat button to start this conversation, Rochelle and I and Amy want to know, where are you today? Are you one of those people that's working from home, or are you working from the office? So if you just chat, oh, there, you got it. You got it already. You don't even need any instructions. Home in New Jersey. I'm originally from New Jersey. Hi, New Jersey. Dining room. Yes. Home. Upstate New York. Hi, upstate New York. At home in Des Moines, Idaho, and London and Texas. Lots of people from New Jersey and Detroit, Wisconsin. But all of these are home.
Four offices, Gary. I saw four. So there are a couple people holding it down. Yeah, it is, and it may be necessary for some of us, but mostly home.
mostly home, and for those of you who are essential workers and likely having to go out, we thank you for holding down the fort. And for all of those at home, including my friend Katrina in Barbados, good to see you on here, Katrina. Welcome, everybody. We are so happy to see you here. We see that so many of you are working from home, but we're curious, how many of you have ever experienced an office shutdown before,
Right, so
right,
this
Rochelle?
may not be unusual for some of us on this scale for sure, right, Gary? But there may have been times where we've been in office shutdowns, and we're curious to know if you have and the reason. And we're already seeing that. A lot of nevers, but some of us have been through this, and we're talking now about weather, and 9/11 and hurricanes.
9/11.
Versions of this have happened before on a smaller scale. Water and gas leaks, yes. Polar vortex.
Oh my, yes. So a lot of these are weather and 9/11, and there have been certainly times, for me, certainly, Rochelle, this is the longest period. How about for you? Yeah, so while many of us have experienced this before, Hurricane Sandy, 9/11 storms, polar vortex, the length and the uncertainty of time here certainly is unusual. So we want to talk a little bit about that today because we're all dealing with this chaos and uncertainty caused by COVID-19. It's not like we know, oh, well, next week we'll be back. We don't know. And our priorities as businesses and even people are shifting by the hour sometimes. They're prompting this even greater need for people leaders to connect with their teams and to be very, very deliberate about that. In fact, people leaders, we must act differently and deliberately to engage people remotely. It's a whole different game than bumping into each other in the hallways in our offices. So the routine and Amy are here to help you do just that. So we want to dig into how can you engage your team remotely as a people leader. And we have a few promises, Rochelle and I, of how we want to go about that today. During our time together, we want to share the changing mindset of people leaders during this time because it is certainly different. And share some techniques to prepare you or your managers to engage a remote team confidently and, of course, effectively.
We're going to talk about some tips on how to facilitate consistent, open, and honest conversations with people serving on the front line about the current state, the future state, and everything in between. And we're going to share a guided approach to help leaders with their teams during uncertain times. We're circled up at over 300 strong today, and it would be good to strengthen our practice, Gary.
Yes, welcome, everybody. We are in this together for sure. This that we're in is, well, just not that long ago, we started to have some travel bans coming into the country or leaving the country, and then our schools started to close. So now we've got the little ones at home, if you have them, trying to figure out how to homeschool and juggle work at the same time, and then no groups of more than 10 people together. That's a big change. Commerce starts to shut down, and we start to work from home with those kids and the other distractions that may be happening in your house. And states and cities are on lockdown. 97% of the U.S., and I know we have people globally with us this morning, 97% of the U.S. is sort of on lockdown. We, in fact, over the last 6 weeks or so, have gone from OMG all the way to WTF, and we did that quickly.
We did. So here's the thing. How are you guys feeling? This is what we're thinking is OMG to WTF, but go ahead and find your way back to the comment box and let us know, what are you feeling? How has this been for you? All these directives coming over the course of weeks. What are your feelings? You can use your own words. And yes, okay, good, thank you. Stressful, tired, frustrating.
It's the gamut. It's happy, optimistic to overwhelmed and lost and stressed. You see the full gamut right there, Rochelle. Anxious, stressed, fearful, overwhelmed, scared. Under a dark cloud, mixed emotions, crazy. Missed my colleagues. Yeah, Karen, we are all feeling that. Even the ones, I feel like this makes strange bedfellows. Those colleagues that you don't necessarily always love, I'm finding a lot of love for them these days. So thank you for the prayerful, Tracy. miss of normalcy.
What is
They're
normal?
really,
Yeah.
really, really across the gamut of emotions here, and that's absolutely
Here's a quote that
normal.
captures what we've been seeing,
So,
Gary. A people leader reported this. Here's from their perspective. I'm overwhelmed. I want to take action, but I have zero power or control, and I feel like I'm failing. We're getting no direction, so I'm just not showing up.
and that last piece there, Rochelle, we're getting no direction, so I'm just not showing up. As people leaders, our front line really depends on us to show up, and that piece there really saddens me.
It's a sad story.
Yeah, I think we can help. So let's see if we can help our managers everywhere to show up a little bit better.
So here's where we'd like to hear what your people leaders are saying. That was just an example of someone that was feeling a bit disconnected and paralyzed. What are your people leaders saying? And Amy, I know you're going to help us watch the chat, and you've got a perspective on this. You work with a lot of people leaders. This is a very unusual time. Let's learn a little bit about some perspective here.
Yeah, absolutely. And while everyone's typing in their comments on what your people leaders are saying, as you know, the conference board, we continue to meet. All our leaders are desperately, they want to meet more. Can you believe this? They want to connect. They're concerned. They want to do right by their people. They're not sure how to operate. They might have worked virtually. They may never have. How do they lead their teams? And you can see more questions coming on. How do we address personal questions? How do we provide support to our teams? How do we keep business running? Right? All the leaders, unrealistic expectations. How do they alleviate stress? The teams are looking to the leaders and the managers to figure that out. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm following the chat, and I saw two right off the bat that were just opposite ends. One was they're saying business as usual, and the other one says they're silent, which is not what we need right now. Lots of diversity here in these chats where people are saying that there's a need to connect, but they don't necessarily know how to do it. They're doing their best virtually to wrap their arms around their people as best they can. Fluid and searching for new best practices. Some of them are really good in finding time for social connection and trying to care, but they're feeling pressured to be available more than when they usually are in the office. So they're asking for training. Thank you, Judy. We're hearing the same thing. Lots of people are saying, I don't know how to do that management thing, that people connection thing in this environment. Yeah. Rochelle, anything
no,
else
I think we got a good
on?
feel for, we're all over the board in lots of different spaces, but a lot of us are indeed, we stopped, Gary. We're trying to figure this out.
Yep, we are paralyzed in some cases. We don't necessarily know what to do. But what we do know is that your people leaders, or if you're a people leader yourself and you've joined us, we need to move for our front line from paralyzed to mobilized. There's no sitting still right now, and we've got to bring people along with us. Many of our leaders, our people leaders, feel like they're caught in a maze of question and uncertainty, and they cannot see above the shrubs in this maze. They don't have a direction of how to get through this. And what we're finding is that our people leaders, more than ever, need an actual GPS, a way to get out of that confusion. And as luck would have it, Rochelle is going to share with us a little bit about a leader GPS that you can give to your people following this webinar. So we're going to give you all of that information to be able to share.
Okay, I'm glad we're looking at the GPS today, Gary, because as I look in the chat, I'm seeing that a lot of people are feeling busier than ever, but I'm not sure they think that they're productive. So I think the GPS is going to be a good tool to bring focus into our leadership practice, and it's basically a coaching model that allows you to coach yourself as a leader by asking some powerful questions. The first component we call Know My Role, and the question is, what's my responsibility in this as a leader? This is a great question that lets us shift over and remind ourselves that we're not task managers, we're people leaders, okay? So what does that mean, and what would be a tip in this space? One of the things we have to remember to do is put people first, and I see that a lot of you have talked about that in the chat, the need to do that. It is going to be demanding, but we are chief engagement officers as leaders. We are the connection. We represent the company to our people. So putting people first is going to be our call to action, and we have to remind ourselves every day because the tasks are piling up. The meetings are back to back. As a chief engagement officer, what you do is hold more frequent, yes, team meetings, but even more so one-on-one meetings. Talk about the personal impact first and then what needs to happen in the business. And a great leadership tip, always and forever, and more today, is ask questions and listen more than you talk.
I just love that one, that second tip there that you've put out, Rochelle, of ask about personal impact first and business impact second, because sometimes your frontline is dealing with personal issues going through this crisis right now where they can't even think about the business yet. They need to be engaged first and foremost, and I love that. Listen more, talk less, because people need somebody to talk to right now. So thank you for bringing that. There's this emotional and intellectual connection that we as people leaders need to engage our frontline in. And just would ask you all to think about making that emotional connection first. Let's make sure we're connected. As I said before, this time is making for some strange bedfellows. So those people that you may have never been in good rhythm with before, this is the time to get into good rhythm, make that emotional connection, and then share the intellectual side of the business need. But you're going to need both at this time. And at this point, when your people are working remotely and feeling isolated, you have to get face-to-face, even when you're not face-to-face. Something like this. Hey, Rochelle,
Hey,
how you doing? Good to see you. Hi, Amy. How's it going?
Face-to-face.
So, face-to-face, even when you're not face-to-face, is really important. You've got to do it. And you all have the technology mechanisms to do that. So we're happy to share that sort of silly moment with you. But there's some seriousness behind it because you really have to be able to look at people right now and listen to them and talk to them about the priorities of your business.
Okay, I just want to respond to something in the chat real quick. I know we're being really literal about face-to-face, but yes, hearing your voice and the energy in your voice, all those things still matter too, and you don't necessarily have to see somebody to pick up on that energy. That's going to be where you listen deeply to every tone. Yeah.
So, and I want to answer Dawn's question very specifically. She says, for 3 years now, she's been remote and not face-to-face. Here is just the added value of face-to-face. It's not impossible, Dawn, but face-to-face allows you to see what is not being said. So people's facial expressions, how they're holding themselves, how they're showing up, that physicality comes through on a camera that you don't get over the phone. Now, what you do get over the phone is the ability to listen to how people are feeling. So if you're not face-to-face, you've got to key in on that sense in a very deep way and listen to how people are showing up.
Good.
So
it's really good discussion in the chat. Thank you all for joining. We're circled up as leaders, strengthening our practice. We just talked about the importance of people, and now let's remind ourselves about the big picture. We call this component Know My Business. We're coaching ourselves, shoulders back, looking in the mirror, trying to ask ourselves what we need to get through each day. And the question here, what information is most important for the team to understand, and how will I share it? Okay, that's what we have to ask ourselves to get focus. It's coming at us from every direction. There's uncertainty and chaos and distance. Let's ask ourselves this question, and it will lend itself to some answers. There are some tips in this area. When it comes to the big picture, make sure that you start with the marketplace and how your company is responding. People find hope in that, okay? Talk about the specific changes you are asking of the individual, and finally, don't be afraid to say that you don't know. And I'm even going to add, don't be afraid if the answer changes. We have to let go of that as leaders, that we always know the answer. The time and place is not for that right now. We just need to do something.
Yeah, old school management says, hey, I'm the manager. I have all of the answers. Let me tell you what to do. Well, that's sort of gone in the past, but especially now, we don't have all the answers as people leaders. And being vulnerable enough to say, I'm not sure, or I think this is what it is, and it may change, or yes, that's what I said yesterday, but it's something different today. That's just what we're in right now. Feel comfortable to say, I don't know. Feel comfortable to change the answer, because being flexible right now is the name
Okay,
of the
and
game.
then, so our people are first, so we've got our big picture, but we've got to make connections and make sure that meaning is a part of what we're doing. And the question that helps us, how does each person on the team impact this, and how will I connect them to it? Okay, so it's even more important that we have that North Star. People need to feel purposeful. They're struggling to find purpose in a lot of ways, so let's connect them to purpose. Your company may call this a mission, a vision, a cause, a promise. Any type of North Star that your company points people towards is more important today than probably ever, I would say, Gary.
Yeah, there's this higher calling that a lot of us have in our businesses, sort of that reason you get up, why you'd show up to work even if you weren't getting paid, sort of thing. And I think we have to, the reason why you join that business. I think as people leaders, we need to constantly now connect our people back to that higher calling. So it helps them move and elevate past this frustration and isolation and difficult time, and keep focused on the
So thank
prize.
you to
Why are
Marianne,
we
who's
here?
in the chat, Gary, today on behalf of healthcare. We have a lot of healthcare clients, and we're really close to what they're feeling now. And this is where leaders can get lost. And so she's given testimony to that we get a lot of new tasks and directives every day, right, especially in that industry. And we need to keep our leaders pointed towards the true north.
So, Marianne, we thank you. I'm sure everybody thanks you for the work that you're doing in hospitals. It's the single most important thing happening right now during this crisis. But also, you are in a bit of an enviable spot, because in hospitals you do have that higher calling. You know you are there to save lives, which is why so many people in your business are showing up day after day in a very dangerous situation. And we can all learn a lesson from what's going on in the hospitals on continuously connecting our people to iHire.
All right, so we've got our shoulders back, coaching ourselves through these, Gary. Our people are first. We've got the big picture. We're making connections. We still rely on ourselves to deliver results. This has got to happen. The question, what leadership skills do I need to tap to maximize my team's success? We all have a leadership practice. This is a leadership moment of truth. What are we going to pull out of our arsenal and push the accelerator on? We've got a couple of ideas for you. Let's put celebrate very top of the list. People need this more than ever. Coaching and developing has not come to a standstill. Some people are actually being developed beyond measure right now because the situation calls for it. We have to be crystal clear. Even if we don't know when we do make a decision, that decision needs to be communicated very clearly. And then relationships are still important. Just because we're under pressure doesn't mean we have the right to burn bridges. These relationships and what we do with them, they'll count. When the dust settles, we will have to face it. And we might have some new relationships out of this too. So, Gary, I think you've mentioned that, the strange bedfellows. Yeah. Yes.
I do.
These are all still important.
I do. They're all important. And you know, that celebrate piece, part of that is new relationships, people that I haven't interacted with much, even in our organization, Rochelle. I have been invited to more happy hours in the last 2 weeks, virtual happy hours, than I think I've ever attended in my entire life. But I show up and it's cocktails on Wednesday now. It's incredible. But that's a way to celebrate, I think, the way teams are coming together, pulling together, and a way to connect. A great way of celebration. But it also allows you to build those relationships, and in those conversations be coaching in a relaxed moment. So I've really appreciated the way our company, and I've seen other companies coming together around these tips in light of what's going on.
And we're live in the chat with participants sharing what they're doing. So that's what we want to continue to do, Gary, is ask people that have joined today. We're circled up to over 200 strong. Please use this opportunity to share with others. So we've seen a couple of testimonies to the importance of one-on-ones, even a text or a phone call, communicating appreciation more than ever, getting together more often. We're keeping in mind personality styles and how people like to be communicated to is so important. Yes. So let's do this, and I know Amy's voice will come in on this too because she's got a perspective and has been helping us watch the chat. When you think about this navigation system, putting people first, big picture, making connections, deliver results, what's working for you? Let us know in the chat, and Amy, while that's happening, tell us a little bit about what's on your mind and what you've seen.
I think the comments from Gary, the suggestions on happy hour, and a couple of the other comments coming in, morning coffee. Again, we're human. Let's have fun with it as best that we can in a very difficult time. I'll give you a quick example. Our extended team on our side, we have a Friday afternoon celebrate. We don't want to say, happy hour, but we can say, bring your choice of beverage hour. And we just actually implemented a little fun game, which is, we're all doing Zoom with the customized backgrounds. So we now have a little competition going for next week on Friday, or this week on Friday, who's coming up with the best background for their Zoom view, right? I mean, it's a silly example. It's just a silly example.
Virtual
I think
background.
it's to engage each other and help each other get through what is a difficult time. What can we do that's a little bit fun, a little bit helpful, a little bit supportive, and it gives us a reason to connect and still laugh with each other, right? Because we are ultimately human.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, this thread is starting to give us great suggestions like come in costume and bring your kids as your coworkers. But this thread started with, well, what do you do when people don't yet feel comfortable using these new mediums to socialize? And I think I just wanted to address that and say we need to invite them and include them and make sure that it doesn't feel like the weight is sitting on them to lead, but yet just to participate when they're comfortable. And as people leaders, our job is to draw out the best in people. So you're in a position where you can ask really meaningful questions or fun questions. And a lot of that can be done in games. So virtual talent show is up on the screen right now, and I've seen a bunch more. I know for the ones that I've been involved with right now, a lot of them, we have somebody in charge of putting the games together, and you'd be surprised how many games are adaptable. But I think the point here is if you're celebrating, and that's what we seem to be focused on right now, just the most casual one-on-one virtual coffee. I have a breakfast with a client coming up even, by phone. That virtual connection, one-on-one or in groups, just brings people into the fold and makes them feel a part of something bigger than just themselves. There is no right or wrong here. But, well, I shouldn't say that. The only wrong here is not reaching out and not bringing your people together. So, yes, let's just sit here for a minute. If you look at these questions of really knowing your role as the Chief Engagement Officer, knowing your business, connecting your team, delivering results, Rochelle, what's a good question we can ask people around those 4 areas of the
Okay,
GPS?
so one of the things I see in the chat that I want to connect to this is the importance of daily check-ins and the importance of one-on-one. You, as a leader, have people that are in different situations. Some have children at home, some do not. Some have parents that need help, some do not. Some have a spouse that is being impacted by furloughs, some do not. So your role is to know people as individuals. The company is relying on you for that. Other people are occupied with other things, and that's your job. So important to check in with people on a regular basis. And then perspective is important too for the know my business, the big picture. I think it's important to ask people what they think the big picture is, because then you can meet them where they are. Some people are coming from fear right now, and some people are coming from a place of hope. By asking the question of what they see in the big picture, what they think is going to happen, lets you know where they are, okay? And then you can do better at connecting them to what the company is doing and what you think is happening and to where they will fit in what I see out there on the chat is the new norm, okay? And then the results, the type of results that we're measuring and delivering today, they're going to look different, okay? Somebody whose job has been completely displaced right now, their results are going to be about developing themselves and getting comfortable in a virtual environment. Somebody who is working around the clock right now, their delivering results is going to be about what they're actually producing and how well they're asking for support and help. That's what they need. So please, please make certain that we are meeting people where they are, and that's what we're trying to do today in the chat, and we are all over the place here. Are you guys watching this? Yeah.
We are. So let's just see. Amy, help us with Aaron's questions here. He has 2 of them in a row.
No, it's a great question. How is the organization firm-wide doing check-ins? I have seen all over the place that you can do daily check-ins. I have been part of daily check-ins. I've been part of weekly check-ins. I've been part of week and a half check-ins. What I will say that is less desirable is much longer. You know, a monthly check-in. I mean, the whole world has changed in a month, right? You really need to ask for more check-ins. And you offer more check-ins to the best of your ability. We know every organization works differently. We've seen that in the chat today. You need to work within your organization and within the culture. We understand that. But I know for my organization, the employees have asked for more check-ins because things change too quickly. How about you guys? Any other?
And so we're seeing it at 3 levels. And Rochelle, keep me honest on this. The check-in one-on-one is extremely important, more important than ever, and some people, you'd put them off if we got busy. But now I think making sure as a people leader you're committed to that one-on-one check-in, critical. Then there's your team check-in. Let's bring our entire team together. How are we feeling? How are we doing? What are our priorities? And then, if you have influence over this, the organizational check-in. And Amy, to your point, you can't let a lot of time go by with any one of those, because people are feeling anxious and need to know what's going on.
I would just add
Michelle,
that don't
thoughts?
feel pressure to make those all real time, okay? In this day and age, some of us are working around the clock, some of us are working around the globe. It's nice when you can connect personally, but I've had people just reach out over email, and then when I see it at midnight, I'm just as happy as I am to see it as when they sent it, okay? Same thing with all companies. Are those being recorded? Can you look back at them later? Are there notes? Are there things that are happening asynchronously on sites? Just know that the time pressure should not prohibit you from checking in on these levels. We'll find creative ways.
Yep, so our last 3 comments as you're saying that, Rochelle, is our people, we have so many check-ins, our people say they feel more connected now than ever. Then someone else said our CEO sends out a weekly video, and somebody else says our CEO blogs every day. So this is great. Gary says we have a weekly CEO call with the company, weekly with our division, and weekly with our AVP. That's exactly what I was talking about before. Gary, nice name. Thanks for joining. So here we have a very active audience today, Amy and Rochelle. I'm just wondering if we spend a few minutes, we deliberately leave some good time for questions and answers. So I wonder if this is a good time to transition into some of those questions.
Yep, so we're ready. We've talked about leadership today. We've talked about the leadership moment of truth and what the situation is causing us to do. It evolves on a regular basis, and we're all learning. So this would be a great time for us to circle up. Wow, we're still 200 strong here. I don't know where you can circle up 200 strong, and leverage one another and learn from one another. So questions are welcome. We've been seeing them the whole time, but if there's something that's really on your mind, it means it's probably meant to be shared. If you would let us know in the chat, we'll see what we can do.
So, Amy, maybe you can answer the first question that I know we get a lot. Can people get this PowerPoint or a recording?
So is it on the download box that we have underneath the slides? And control room, if I've misspoken, please correct me in the notes or in the pod, but I believe that is correct. So yeah, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, we've got Sarah's got a really interesting question here. All of them are interesting. Sorry, I didn't mean to make the judgment call. That one just got my attention. How are companies managing productivity of remote workforce? Are they using apps, tools, etc.? Thoughts on that?
Well, I have a real strong point of view on this, and I think that as we get more into measuring results, productivity becomes easier. And what we have found, believe it or not, is that people that are remote tend to actually overwork. It's hard to step away. So if you have measurable results, then you know if people are being productive. It's no longer about how many hours they're putting in, like it might be when they're in the office. It's about what they're actually producing and what's being asked of them. So if you can shift your measurements towards productivity and allow people to work when it works, I get it if they're on the call system and they need to take calls at a certain time, but if it can be done when they're ready, some of us are having sleepless nights, and I cherish my 3 a.m. ability to log on and do something. The bottom line is, am I doing something? That's a thought, and I'd love to hear if somebody has in the chat, or if one of you have something to say about that. It's a tough one.
I think you're saying you would like to see
Yes.
as much flexibility as
Yes, and be
possible,
focused
Rochelle.
on
Is that
results.
right? Yeah. And so, yeah, Curtis Smith says we submit daily work activity reports is one way. It doesn't say that it's time bound,
Helpful.
so that's
If I can jump
interesting.
in as well, we do the
Yeah.
same where we're more deliverable focused, and individuals need to be flexible to work whenever they can. For example, I had somebody on my team, had to take care of a personal issue. And I said, do what you got to do, right? Because we're in a crisis. You have to take care of yourselves and your family and, come back to it when you are able to. There was no issue around that. How do we show that empathy to each other to help them through that? And we, have tracking tools like everybody else. We look at each and every different project, which stage of the project, who needs help. If you're continually asking those questions and in conversation, we know who's struggling or maybe who's doing well and can help others.
Yeah, there's a great comment here that says we don't want to introduce more monitoring at this time. It just sends the wrong message. I would say if you're introducing more monitoring, that your organization may seem a bit tone deaf. So Amy says for knowledge workers, it's about results and not built-in seat time, which I think was your point as well, Rochelle and Amy. Can we tell people what the deliverables are and just have accountability to those versus
Yep.
trying to monitor time? We still have a few people, I think, Amy, it'd be good to clarify. I saw a bunch of comments about the drop-down box had a tip sheet, and I think people were wondering if more than that will be able
Yes.
to,
No, my apologies
come.
if and the control room is helping me figure out where to connect folks. So thank you for that.
All right. The idea of how do we hold people accountable is an interesting one. I think that one of the other comments I saw there was trust. This is the time to lead with trust. Trust that people are working the best they can and working through probably some complexities that they've never encountered before. So one of the tips that I just like to offer you here in this, how do you manage the workforce, is really ask questions. Don't assume that people aren't working. Ask, how are things going? When are you finding are the best times for you to work? What are the challenges? So as a people leader, your job is to ask your team powerful questions to uncover what's going well for them and where they're struggling, so you can sit next to them and brainstorm ways for them to deliver their absolute best productivity at this time.
Okay, Ann has asked it, and I'm ready. Y'all want to talk about the future and what it may or may not hold, and the fear that people have about will we be seeing layoffs if this continues, or furloughs? And it's in the back of their minds, and it could actually be impacting how they're working right now because people are trying to keep the boat afloat. We get that. And I think this is a worry that a lot of people have because we're in a shared global economy right now. We're all experiencing this as opposed to just our company or our industry having like a little downtime, right? So there are some industries that are struggling right now, and it's directly related to this, and it's hard to predict what the future is. This is where the communication is so important from senior leaders to know exactly what they're thinking, including that this is a possibility, actually just putting it out there. Where people get scared is when they don't know. That would be one thought. Gary, I know you've seen this too, and Amy, I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. If I can jump in really quickly, I think Steve is right. Be honest. Don't make promises you can't keep. At the conference board, let me be very transparent. We have been impacted just like everybody else has been. And our senior leadership has been very transparent. They are not making promises they can't keep, but they are telling us what is going on. We're very transparent about what's happening, how this was affected, how the decisions were made, and what is actually being impacted. They can't tell you how long it's going to last, right, because no one can. But they're trying. They're trying really hard, and they're being transparent and honest. This is where the trust comes in that Gary was just talking about, right? The trust that they are looking out for us, for the whole organization. And, what does that mean for everybody? And those are very difficult choices. I don't know, Gary, if you had any other thoughts around that.
Well, I see a lot of interest in making sure that people are delivering what they're supposed to deliver and that they're working. And I'd say before we really try to address that, we've got to take 2 steps back just to make sure that we're past the anxiety. So this question of communication and what do we tell people, let's start there and then we'll get to productivity. We start with, as Stephen said, be honest, don't make promises you can't keep. What I'd add to that, Steve and everybody else, is and demonstrate both curiosity for what's going on in the individual's life and empathy. Because when you're delivering a message that says, I'm not sure if we're going to have cutbacks, salary reductions, furloughs, that can't just be cold. We have to deliver empathy with that. When you are honest and empathetic and you're asking great questions, then and only then do you really have the permission, the mind space, the receptivity to get into talking about productivity and how you're delivering. So productivity is important to everybody. We're all trying to be out there making sure that our businesses can survive. And if you go directly to that productivity question, you will likely fail. So my tip or advice is, let's start with understanding where your people are at. As Rochelle always says, let's meet people where they're at. Find out, ask powerful questions, demonstrate empathy, and then move to productivity.
Yeah.
And Steve is a big fan of empathy right now, so thank you for that, Steve. So I know that we're wrapping up, getting to close time. Amy, what can we tell people as far as follow-up goes?
Well, there's lots of great things going on, so it's really just, Rochelle, thank you also for reposting again the link for more access to today's work. It's really lots of engagement, lots of questions, and really difficult questions, right? And I'm sure at the Root site as well as the Conference Board site, we have lots of different types of information that might be helpful. We all are coming at this from a different place. So what information is helpful? So I think Debbie had mentioned that our economist, Dr. Gad Lebanon, had talked about scenarios and what's going on in the economy. If that's helpful to you right now, you can access that. Other ways to manage teams and, what does that look like from an engagement? And, the rootinc.com site may have more interesting references and resources for all of you to access.
Yeah. And Rochelle has posted the link to the Leader GPS. And what we'd like to offer is to use this GPS with the questions that are embedded in it and deliver that to your managers. There's no cost in there. There's nothing that's going to ask you to do more with Root or Conference Board. It just offers you a guide, that GPS for your managers to start to ask some questions and think about 4 critical areas that their frontline people are depending on them for. They're depending on them to really know their business, to know their role as the Chief Engagement Officer, to help connect them, and then in that deliver results piece, to really coach and mentor them at this time, to celebrate with them, to set clear expectations and build a relationship. All of that is going to be in that link to the Leadership GPS, so we encourage you to download that and to use it.
I'm just responding to links or comments that it would be great to have more webinars around this remote working. So absolutely, thank you so much for that. We agree. There's just so much going on, so much that we're all trying to deal with and figure out, right? So really, just to close it up for today, we have covered things around, look at how a significant portion of us are working from home rather than the office. I mean, that's where we started in today's webinar. I mean, this is a new world. This is not, what we've been through before in this way. And everything else that we've talked about today, how do we manage and connect with others on a remote team? These are significant questions, and thank you so much for helping us think through that. We hope the Leader GPS will provide some context and some tips for you to go back and, again, think about how you're doing things on a day-to-day basis or help others do things differently on a day-to-day basis. I will then just sort of summarize that we have other webcasts and other programming from the Conference Board that you might want to access to and really just have, just continue to do the lessons learned. Actually, I didn't want to jump over this, but a super, super thank you to Gary and to Rochelle lots of interesting tips, lots of interesting thoughts from our audience. So, and of course, don't forget, I did see a comment that says, "Where's Alex? Where's Alice?" Sorry, Alice from the Brady Bunch. So, thank you today for the Brady Bunch, the Brady Bunch fun that we want. This is the world in which we live in, and Gary, Rochelle, and I decided let's just go for it, right? Thank you so much for all of that. Please connect with us for more webcasts. And there's a conference coming up in the fall that we want to continue to, of course, invite you on and connect. And as always, just please reach out. Let us know how we can help. There's so much information from Rouge, from the conference board. What can we do to help you? And with that, I'm Amy Abel from the conference board. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope all of you be safe, be well. Please click on the webcast evaluation link. Tell us your thoughts. Tell us how we could do better next time. And what else can we do to help you in these difficult times? So thank you. Thank you, one and all.